Right now, without you doing anything, YouTube already knows what you're going to watch next. Not a guess, not a heuristic. A trained prediction derived from over 80 billion data points collected every single day. The system processes more signals about your behavior in 1 hour than most companies collect about their entire customer base in a year. And the thing making those decisions is not a human, not a team of editors, not even a simple algorithm. It is a deep neural network that was quietly rebuilt from the ground up in 2016. And most people, including most people who work in media, still do not understand how fundamentally it changed what the entire world watches. The stakes here are not abstract. YouTube reaches 2.7 billion logged-in users per month as of 2025. Its recommendation engine drives over 70% of all watch time on the platform. That means roughly 700 million hours of video are consumed every single day based entirely on what a machine decided to show someone. Not what they searched for, not what they chose, what they were served. When a single algorithm controls that volume of human attention, it is not just a product feature. It is an infrastructure decision that shapes political opinions, health behaviors, financial choices, and cultural identity at a scale that has no historical parallel. The advertising market that flows through those recommendations topped $31 billion in 2024. Every time that system nudges your cue in one direction, it is simultaneously allocating economic value, shaping what creators survive, and determining what ideas get amplified or quietly buried. YouTube launched in 2005 as a simple file-sharing site. Founders Chad Hurley, Steve Chun, and Jawed Karim built it so people could share videos the way they emailed photos. Google bought it for $1.65 billion in 2006, which was considered an insane gamble at the time. For its first decade, YouTube's recommendation system was relatively primitive. It optimized for clicks. If you clicked on a video, the algorithm treated that as a success signal and pushed similar content. Think of it like a newspaper editor who measures quality purely by how many people picked up the paper, with no interest in whether they actually read it or threw it away in disgust. The problem was catastrophic. Clickbait exploded. Misleading thumbnails proliferated. Users were clicking on things they immediately regretted, which was generating engagement but destroying satisfaction. By 2012, internal data showed that watch time and user satisfaction were diverging sharply from click rates. YouTube made a pivotal decision. It threw out click optimization almost entirely and began rebuilding around something far more sophisticated: the question of what people actually wanted to keep watching. The first major thing most people do not know is what YouTube's recommendation system is actually built on. In 2016, a team of engineers published a paper called Deep Neural Networks for YouTube Recommendations, and it described a two-stage architecture that was unlike anything the platform had used before. The first stage is called candidate generation. It takes your recent watch history, your search history, your demographic signals, and the time of day, and it narrows the entire YouTube library of over 800 million videos down to a few hundred candidates. Think of it as a filtering system that works at planetary scale in under 200 milliseconds. The second stage is called ranking. Those few hundred candidates are then scored against dozens of additional signals. How long you watched similar videos before, whether you finished them, whether you came back to the same channel, whether you shared or liked or commented. The ranked output becomes your home feed and your up next queue. The paper also revealed something striking. One of the most powerful signals in the ranking stage is not engagement at all. It is the predicted satisfaction score, estimated from post-watch survey data that YouTube has collected from millions of users. The system is not just asking whether you will click. It is predicting whether you will be glad you did. Here is where it gets genuinely unsettling. The algorithm does not just respond to who you are. It actively constructs a version of you that may not be accurate, and then it optimizes for that construction. YouTube's system represents each user as a vector, which is essentially a list of hundreds of numbers that encode your watching patterns in abstract mathematical space. Two users whose vectors are close together will receive nearly identical recommendations, even if they have never watched the same video. This is why the algorithm can predict your next watch with sometimes eerie precision from content you have never consciously explored. But here is the critical implication most researchers flag. Because the system learns from its own outputs, it can accelerate drift. A 2019 study from researchers at Mozilla found that YouTube's recommendation engine could move a user from mainstream news content to increasingly extreme content in fewer than 5 videos under certain conditions. The system was not designed to radicalize anyone. It was designed to maximize predicted satisfaction. But predicted satisfaction, measured through watch time and return visits, can be gamed by content that triggers strong emotional responses, including outrage and fear. YouTube has made significant adjustments since then, including reducing recommendations of what it calls borderline content by over 70% between 2019 and 2022, according to its own transparency reports. But the underlying tension between engagement optimization and well-being has never been fully resolved. The actual mechanism works in 3 layers that most people have never seen described plainly. The first layer is implicit feedback. Every second you spend watching, every pause, every rewind, every moment you switch away is logged and weighted. A video you watch to 95% completion is treated as a strong positive signal even if you never liked it. A video you abandon at 12% sends a negative signal that echoes across your entire recommendation profile. The second layer is collaborative filtering. The system finds users whose entire watch history resembles yours and uses their subsequent choices as a proxy for your future preferences. It is like having 50 million behavioral twins whose choices inform what you see next. The third layer is the contextual modifier. Time of day, device type, and even internet connection speed change the weighting of the ranking model. YouTube's internal research found that mobile users in the evening have measurably different satisfaction patterns from desktop users in the morning, so the algorithm literally runs different versions of itself depending on context. The counterintuitive element is this: the system is not trying to show you what you like. It is trying to show you what a simulated future version of you, 10 minutes from now, will be glad it saw. The complications are real and they are unresolved. First, the feedback loop problem. Because the algorithm shapes what people watch, it reshapes what people want, which reshapes the algorithm further. Researchers at Google itself acknowledged in a 2019 internal paper called Degenerate Feedback Loops in Recommendation Systems that this cycle can narrow user interests over time rather than expand them, a phenomenon they called homogenization. Second, creators have almost no reliable visibility into why the system promotes or suppresses their content. A channel can lose 60% of its impressions overnight with no explanation and no meaningful appeal process. This has created an entire industry of people reverse engineering the algorithm through trial and error, which produces its own distortions. Third, the system's definition of satisfaction is built from survey data that skews towards certain demographics and certain content categories, meaning the algorithm has embedded biases that its designers may not even be fully aware of. For you, this matters in several concrete ways. If you work in media, journalism, education, or entertainment, the algorithm is not a neutral distribution tool. It is the editorial layer deciding whether your work reaches anyone. Understanding that watch time per session and return visit rate are weighted more heavily than raw views should change how you structure content. For viewers, the practical insight is this: the recommendations you see are not a reflection of your taste. They are a prediction model of your behavior that becomes more accurate and more narrow the more passively you consume. Actively searching for content rather than accepting recommendations measurably broadens your profile. YouTube's own internal research shows that users who initiate 30% or more of their sessions through search receive significantly more diverse recommendations than users who rely on the home feed. Over the next decade, the architecture will not get simpler. YouTube's parent company Alphabet is already integrating large language model reasoning into the recommendation stack, which means the system will soon be capable of understanding not just what you watched, but why you might have wanted to watch it. That is a meaningful shift. A system that models